Chapter 5 Venture into the Unknown. Will Eli get well? Every day SHOO-FLY asked the question which no one could answer. All they knew was that he was still at the hospital. In spite of the accident, SHOO-FLY still loved her pet crow, Jackie, and fed him regularly. She talked to him and he talked back, but now he never sat on her finger or her shoulder any more. She could never hold him. He was getting too big for that. Was he getting ready to fly off and never come back again, the way Jonas said? One day, Gross Mama asked SHOO-FLY to take a ride with her. She did not ask the twins. She said it was SHOO-FLY's turn. She did not say where she was going. Gross Mama was very independent. She never told anyone. She just went. She might be going to see Great Gross Mama at Uncle John's, or to the store, or to the doctor, or to pick up Aunt Susanna at the gift shop. SHOO-FLY climbed in the buggy and sat on the seat. Then Gross Mama stepped up briskly. "I can get in without hitting my head," Gross Mama said. "Every time I ride in a car I bump my head, even though I am so little. They make cars so low now." "Gross Mama, do you ride in cars?" asked SHOO-FLY, astonished. "Och, ja, now and then when I have to. But Ma'am scolded me and told me not to ride in the Ferguson's car any more," said SHOO-FLY. "Once more Miss Ferguson brought me home from school." "That wasn't necessary, was it?" said Gross Mama. "You can still walk, can't you?" "Ja, but cars are safer than buggies," said SHOO-FLY. "Who said that?" "Miss Ferguson," said SHOO-FLY. A car whizzed up from behind and SHOO-FLY jumped. "No need to be afraid," said Gross Mama. "The cars won't hit us. I've got a mirror. I can see when they come up behind. We've got as much right on the road as the cars have." Another car boomed by. SHOO-FLY jumped again. "I can see it. I can see it coming," cried Gross Mama. "I keep out of their way." She slapped the lines and said, "Come on now, sonny boy." But Elam Esh got hit by a car, and his buggy got smashed, and he had to buy a new one, said SHOO-FLY. "Dat is making it now." "Elam always was a careless man," said Gross Mama. "I've known him since he wore diapers. Giddy up, sonny boy." "Sonny boy's slow," said SHOO-FLY. "Why don't you get a faster horse, Gross Mama?" "Why do I want to go fast?" said Gross Mama. "I've got all the time in the world. Sonny boy's a Gross Mama horse, nice and tame. He's supposed to go slow." "Couldn't you buy a faster horse at the horse sale in New Holland?" asked SHOO-FLY. "At the horse sale? You never know what you're getting," said Gross Mama. "Even if they let you try the horse first. I bought Sonny Boy from Gideon Glick, an Amish farmer I can trust. Sonny Boy's 9 years old and he's tame. I paid $200 for him." "It will be nice when Jonas gets a horse," said SHOO-FLY. "Jonas will want a 3-year-old, a pacer, and harness with all the trimmings," chuckled Gross Mama. "Mother of pearl rings, colored rosettes, and white snaps to make a big show. Och, well, boys are only young once. He will settle down soon enough once he gets a horse and a courting buggy." Do you like to ride in cars?" Gross Mama asked SHOO-FLY. "Once I rode to Akron in a Mennonite car," laughed Gross Mama. "We went so fast I couldn't keep my bonnet on. I couldn't see what crops they were growing in the fields. There was so much waste land up there. The farmers don't farm as we do here. We had to stop and buy gas twice. It cost $5 for that trip." She paused, then she added, "In my buggy all day I can ride, and it won't cost me a cent." They went riding on and on. There was something very comforting about riding in a buggy, the clop 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 of Sonny Boy's hoofs, and the chance to see all the crops, each tree, each fence, and creek and windmill, and each house and barnyard, especially when you knew who lived there. The ride was a long one, and at last they turned down a lane, and SHOO-FLY knew where she was. They had come to Gross Dotty Yotter's and Uncle Dave's. Several dogs and the little girls came running out to meet them. Then came Aunt Sadie with baby Johnny from the house and Gross Dotty from his toy shop. They crowded round the buggy. Gross Mama said they would not get out. They were just taking a buggy ride and must go right home again. "Did Eli get well?" asked SHOO-FLY. "Where is Eli?" asked Gross Mama. Aunt Sadie turned to the little girls. "Tell Eli to come out." They ran indoors. Soon a boy came out the door, a strange-looking boy, not like Eli at all. What had happened to him? Didn't they feed him enough at the hospital? Or had he grown several inches? "Why, Eli, is it you?" asked SHOO-FLY. "Och, now, I don't know you," cried Grossmama Fisher. "Why, Eli," cried SHOO-FLY, "you're an English boy." "Eli's an English boy, Eli's an English boy," chanted his sisters. Everybody laughed. Eli's hair had been cut short at the hospital. The blow of the pony's hoof had struck the top of his head right in his hair. So all his long Amish bobbed hair had been cut at the top of his head shaved. A bald Amish boy was something unusual. No wonder Eli had gone into hiding. He did not like to be laughed at. "It's not my fault," he grumbled. "It was the mean old crow of yours." He glared at SHOO-FLY. Grossmama Fisher spoke up. "I can see that Eli is getting well again. His temper is as bad as ever." They all laughed again. Then the visitors said goodbye. Grossmama drove off, and they waved to Eli. SHOO-FLY felt relieved. At least Eli was not killed. He was still very much alive. Jackie had not done such a terrible thing after all. Now she could keep him. SHOO-FLY felt happy again. One day Betty Ferguson came and asked Ma'am if SHOO-FLY could go to her house for a visit. Ma'am said she could, and the two girls walked out the lane and up the road together. It was her first visit to a non-Amish home, and SHOO-FLY hardly knew what to expect. Of course, they spoke English the way the children did at school. It was nice to speak English and to read it in books. All the English people spoke it. People all over Pennsylvania spoke it, and all over the United States, and all over the world, Miss Weber said. SHOO-FLY was glad she could speak it too. Ma'am insisted they speak Dutch at home, but whenever you left home, English was the thing. SHOO-FLY went in Betty's house and looked around. It was very different from an Amish home. She stared with big eyes. There was so much to see. The rooms were small and very crowded. There were lace curtains and soft carpets and pictures on the wall, and books and magazines and framed photographs looking at you from every direction. Also there was noise. The TV and a radio were blaring, and there was a piano to play. The telephone began to ring and kept on ringing. The whole house was an assault on her eyes and her ears. "What do you want to do?" Betty asked. "I don't know," said SHOO-FLY. "Let's look at TV," said Betty. They squatted on cushions on the floor and looked at the flickering screen. SHOO-FLY could see shadows like people darting back and forth, and she heard loud shouting noises, but she could not tell what it was all about. Then men began pointing guns and banging. It confused, then alarmed her. She suddenly remembered. She jumped up. "I don't want to see it," she told Betty. "Why, ever not," said Betty. "I just love it." "It's not allowed," said SHOO-FLY. "I'm Amish." But Betty could hardly hear through the noisy din. The telephone rang, and Betty got up to answer it. SHOO-FLY listened to the one-sided conversation. She had never talked on the telephone in her life. "It's my brother Bill," Betty said. "Do you want to talk to him, Susanna? Come and say hello to him." "Och, no," cried Susanna, frightened. "I don't want to." Betty hung up the receiver. "Mommy," she called, "Bill says he won't be home for supper. He wouldn't tell where he was going." Then Miss Ferguson came in. "You girls come on outside," he said. Miss Ferguson bustled in from the kitchen. "Put your bonnet back on, Susanna," she said. "Ain't she cute?" Outside, before she realized it, Mr. Ferguson pointed a camera at her and snapped her photograph. It happened quickly. "Don't do that," cried Susanna unhappily. "It's not allowed." "Just one more," said Mr. Ferguson. "Betty, put your arm around Susanna's waist." Susanna could not stop him. There was nothing she could do. She felt like crying, but held back the tears. Why had she come here? She must get away quickly and go home. But Miss Ferguson had supper ready, and Betty placed a chair for her. It was getting dark, so she turned on the electric light. The click of the switch was too sudden, and the flash of the light too harsh. SHOO-FLY blinked. She took her bonnet off and sat down. She looked at Betty's hands. She had red paint on her fingernails. She looked at Betty's lips. She had red lipstick on her lips. She folded her own hands in her lap to pray, but they began eating at once. "I made schnitz and knepp just for you, Susanna," said Miss Ferguson. "It's cooked with ham the way you do, but we call it dried apple dumplings." SHOO-FLY took a few mouthfuls. Why had she come? She put down her fork. She tried hard not to cry. "I want to go home," she said. "Why, the poor child's homesick. Can you imagine?" said Miss Ferguson. "Betty, can't you do something to amuse her, to make her stop crying?" Betty left the table and brought out a string of red beads. "You can have it," she said, but SHOO-FLY did not even look. She buried her face in her hands. "I guess I'd better take her home," said Miss Ferguson. "No, don't take her," said Mr. Ferguson. "Let her go." "That's right," said Miss Ferguson. "She's got legs to walk," her mother said. "But I hate to see her go off down the road alone, crying. It's getting dark, but what can we do?" Betty turned to Susanna. "I wanted you to stay all night with me," she said, "but I don't suppose you want to." SHOO-FLY shook her head. Drying her tears, SHOO-FLY ran all the way home. She felt like a bird let out of a cage. She got there just in time to put the supper dishes in the cupboard, after the twins had dried them. Home was a haven, a shelter. The everyday routine made it home. Betty asked me to stay all night. She told the girls. "Why didn't you?" asked Beck. SHOO-FLY tossed her head. "I didn't take my nightgown, bonnet." She might as well tell the worst. All her horror was gone now. She was filled with daring. "Mr. Ferguson took a picture of me wearing my bonnet." "Susanna!" "No," cried Ma'am. "You didn't let him." SHOO-FLY hung her head. "He never asked me. He just took it." Dat spoke up. How could she stop him? He asked. He turned to Susanna and repeated what she knew already. "We do not approve of photographs. It is not our way. We are Amish." SHOO-FLY told about things in the Fergusons' home, the lace curtains, the electric lights that hurt her eyes, the television that jumped, and the telephone that jangled. The others listened. Jonas smiled broadly. "It's high time for you to get away from home now once," said Jonas, "to see how other people do things. The Fergusons are nice people. I like them." Dat looked at Jonas sharply, but said nothing. It was time for bed, foot-washing time. Beck brought the foot tub with warm water. One by one the children stepped into it and washed their feet, the older girls helping. They put on their nightgowns. Dat got out his big book, and the children crowded round. He read from the Bible, and they all sang a hymn together. SHOO-FLY folded her hands in peace. How good it was to be home again. Betty Ferguson had offered her the key to another world, but she was not like Jonas. She was reluctant to enter it. Every day, SHOO-FLY watched Jonas. Was he going to go away without telling anybody? What was that he said about getting away from home? It seemed as if SHOO-FLY would never get a chance to talk to Jonas alone. There was always somebody around. In a big family, there was no privacy at all. Everybody knew everybody else's business. Jonas felt the same way about it. He liked to go off and be by himself whenever he could. It was hidden away in old bug that she found him again. The radio was playing softly, but Jonas did not listen. He wanted somebody to talk to. He talked about going to Canada. Again, he said 3 boys were going to hitchhike and camp along the way. To SHOO-FLY it sounded like make-believe. What will you eat? She asked. We'll pick berries and fruit for people, said Jonas. But winter will soon be here, and it's cold in Canada, she said. Well, get jobs, said Jonas. Where will you sleep? Asked SHOO-FLY. Up in a tree, said Jonas. SHOO-FLY laughed. Now she was sure he was joking. You'll fall down. But Jonas sounded serious. Bill wants to leave home. He says his father's mean to him. I've got to help him. He's a nice boy, even if he is English. He's nice, or he wouldn't have given me this radio. They've got 2 other better ones and a TV. You'll have to have money to go on a trip, said SHOO-FLY. I've got some, said Jonas, but you give me your money to that, don't you, to save for you. I don't give him all of it, said Jonas. I'm old enough to have some spending money of my own. But you'll want a courting buggy when you are 16, began SHOO-FLY. Bill's gonna buy a second-hand car and let me ride in it. Jonas turned the radio a little higher. Och, don't, cried SHOO-FLY. Dat will hear it. The radio is a sin. Bill says it's not a sin for him, so I say it's not a sin for me. SHOO-FLY looked at him with eyes as big as his own conscience. But Bill's not Amish, and you are, she said. Not unless I join the Amish church, I'm not, said Jonas. That night the Fishers had a visitor. Shortly after Dat came back from town, a large black car drove into the barnyard, and a big heavy man got out. Dat had met him at the horse sale in New Holland and told him to come. He took him to the stable and showed him his own horses. They talked about horses for a long time. Dat said he would like to raise 5 or 6 colts, just to watch them grow and to break them into harness. The man wanted to buy a good riding horse and asked Dat to help him select one. What do you want with a horse? Asked Dat, laughing. You've got a Cadillac. After a day at the Lancaster stock market, the man said, I want to come out here and ride and forget all my business troubles. I like this beautiful farm country. I want to go horseback riding on these back roads. So that's it, Dat laughed again. A good horse you must have then. We'd like you to stay and eat with us. You mean I can? Asked the man. I thought you plain people didn't mix with outsiders. Sometimes we do, said Dat, smiling. The man went to his car and brought out some packages. As soon as he came in the back door, SHOO-FLY recognized him. It was the mystery man from Massachusetts. She ran into the bedroom. She did not want him to see him. She had not forgotten that he had nearly crashed into her with his big car. She hated him, but she had to come out of hiding when supper was ready. Hi there, SHOO-FLY girl, the man said. How's the pie business today? SHOO-FLY hung her head and did not answer. I almost ran over you, didn't I? The man laughed, but SHOO-FLY did not think it was funny. The naphtha gas lamp made a bright glow over the long table. The twins went dancing up and down on the long benches, putting silver and dishes in place. Hayfork and Sammy picked up knives and forks, hooked them together for make-believe airplanes, and zoomed them through the air. The man sat in the tulip rocker and watched. He did not say much. Once he turned to Mam and said, I like the plain people. I like the way your children work. My kids never did a lick of work in their lives. Supper was plain but good. Home canned sausage, carrots, potatoes, applesauce, chow-chow, and canned peaches. The children crept out of the shadows and sat in their places. They prayed in silence. The man prayed and ate with them quietly, not talking. SHOO-FLY kept her eyes on her plate. She did not look at him once. After the meal, he helped with the dishes. Then he opened his packages. He had gifts of dolls and toys, coloring books and crayons. There were pretty handkerchiefs for the older girls, and pen knives for Jonas and Rags. He offered a doll to SHOO-FLY, but she did not take it. He did not know she was too old to play with dolls. She went back in a dark corner and sat down. The man leaned back in his rocker and talked about himself as Dat asked him questions. He told about his business and his wealth. He said he had to come to Lancaster twice a year on business. He said his sons were in a college and had cars of their own. He said he gave his daughter a beautiful home with all modern conveniences for a wedding present. He told about his wife and all her social activities and how many clubs she belonged to. He said he had so much money he didn't know what to do with it, so he thought he'd buy a good riding horse. Jonas sat on the edge of his chair and listened to the man's words. He was absorbing a vision of an unknown world. SHOO-FLY watched him anxiously. She wished the man would stop talking and go home. He was giving Jonas too many ideas. Then he did go. Dat promised to help him select a good riding horse. Dat and Jonas walked out to his car with him. When they came back, Jonas whispered to SHOO-FLY, "I wish I had a big Cadillac like that." SHOO-FLY ran to Dat. "Don't sell him, Sonny boy. He's a Gross-Mama horse. Gross-Mama needs him. She paid $200 for him." Dat laughed. "Don't worry, he doesn't want an old plug like that." "Why does he come here to see us?" asked SHOO-FLY. "He likes the plain people," said Dat. Chapter 6. City of Strangers. SHOO-FLY was very excited. She could hardly stand still while Bib combed her hair. Today she was going to town. She had thought about it for a long time, and now at last the day had come. SHOO-FLY had to have new shoes, and Rags a new felt hat. So they were going to New Holland. Ma'am said the twins could go too. SHOO-FLY had her own money in her little purse. She knew just what she was going to buy. She had a secret all her own. Jonas hitched up Skipper to the buggy. "What an old cheese crate," said Jonas. "I hope it will hold together till you get home again." SHOO-FLY laughed. "This is Gross-Mama's buggy. Where's Ma'am's?" "It's at the shop for repairs," said Jonas. "One wheel squeaks. Besides, if a cheese crate's good enough for Gross-Mama, it's good enough for the family." The twins sat up front with Ma'am and Dat. SHOO-FLY and Rags sat in the back, with the curtain rolled up. It was SHOO-FLY's favorite place. She loved to watch the road flowing endlessly away from under her. It was as if the buggy were standing still and the road itself were moving away. She knew the landscape for a mile or two, every tree and bush and fence. It was her own road, where every bird and butterfly, every horse and cow was a friend. Even the clouds in the sky were familiar, a part of her very life. The road dipped into a valley past Uncle John's house, past the Zook's farm, then over the old covered bridge, past fields of corn and alfalfa and woodland, then up the hill again, then took a turn after a pause at the junction. After that, the sharp noise of the horses' hooves and on the cement told her they were on the highway. "There's where the pie stand used to be," she said, pointing. SHOO-FLY was glad it was gone now. The weather had turned cooler, and there was little sale for baked goods. She had not gone back again after the near crash from the mystery man's car. From here on, the highway was strange. From here on, she was in a new world. New scenery opened up, with odd and unfamiliar homes and trees and yards, a few scattered shops and gas stations, and everywhere signs to read in English. This went on, and suddenly they were in the city, with houses and shops all close together. Dat knew just where to go to tie up Skipper, at a tie rack in the shade, in a parking lot behind a big store. They came around to the front. Here Dat left them, and Mam and the children walked slowly along the street. "We'll just look first," said Mam. The new world of the city was very exciting. They went in and out of the stores. They stood outside looking in first one shop window, then another. It was wonderful just to look at all the lovely things, dolls and toys and books and magazines and dresses, stylish fancy dresses of bright and colorful patterns, the kind the English people wore. They looked without envy, without any longing for the things they saw. They came back to the large store and went in. Mam led the way through the crowded aisle. They found a stairway and went down to the basement. Here there were long tables and shelves filled with rolls of cloth on display. SHOO-FLY and her sisters walked up and down the aisles, touching the shiny silks and woolly fabrics. They rubbed their fingers on smooth satin and soft velvet. It took Mam a long time to pick out what she wanted. She bought material for shirts, pants, dresses, and aprons. Upstairs at the front counter, Reuben had to be fitted for a new hat. A stack of men's and boys' Amish hats was piled on the counter. The man clerk looked till he found one the right size. He tried to joke with Reuben, but the boy kept his mouth closed tight. He did not even smile. Was he afraid of the big city too? They came to the shoe department and sat down. A lady clerk seemed to know just the right kind of shoe and the right size for SHOO-FLY. They were black shoes with laces and had patent leather toes. They did not pinch at all, so Mam bought them. Out on the street again, they walked several blocks and came to the Dutch gift shop. As they opened the door, a bell tinkled and a clerk came forward. It was Aunt Susanna in her Amish dress, with her prayer covering over her head. She smiled, and in her quiet way made them welcome. The shop was filled with beautiful gifts. SHOO-FLY had never been there before. It was like a visit to dreamland. She looked and looked, but could not see everything. Shelves and counters were filled with glass, china, and knickknacks. The children looked, but did not touch. Mam and Aunt Susanna talked. The owner of the shop came and talked too. Then Aunt Susanna gave each of the children a present. She gave Rags a china pig bank, the twins tiny Amish dolls, and Susanna a pink glass bonbon dish. SHOO-FLY thought it was the most beautiful thing in the shop. "This will be for your hope chest," said Aunt Susanna. She packed the dish carefully in a cardboard box and set it aside. SHOO-FLY said, "Thank you very much." Then she remembered her secret. She whispered to Aunt Susanna, and Aunt Susanna told her what to do. While the others went in the back room to visit, SHOO-FLY walked down the street alone. She must remember the directions. Go to the corner, past 2 green lights, and cross over. The third store on the right was the variety store. There she could make her purchase. SHOO-FLY marched along, feeling very grown up. She looked neither to the right nor left. She counted the lights, crossed over, and found the store. She went in and looked around. She had never bought anything alone before. Her heart began to pound. The counters were filled with all sorts of things, notions and toys, stationery, soaps, and jewelry. Suddenly somebody called, "Hello, why, it's Susanna." She looked up. There were the Fergusons, Miss Ferguson, Betty, Janice, and Bobby. It was good to see them. After all, they were neighbors. "What are you doing in New Holland?" Betty asked. "I came with my mother," said SHOO-FLY. Betty was looking at barrettes. Her hair was strubbly. It hung all over her face. She needed something to hold it back. "Buy me this one. I want that one," Betty and Janice pointing to things they wanted. Bobby wanted candy and toys. Their mother bought them what they asked for. SHOO-FLY watched in amazement. How greedy Betty was. She wanted everything she saw. Some Amish girls had bobby pins, and a few wore very plain barrettes, but Ma'am said they were not necessary. A narrow black ribbon would keep their hair not in place. The plain people did not wear fancy things. The first thing an Amish child learned was to deny himself. The Fergusons left the store, and SHOO-FLY found the harmonicas. The clerk was kind. She showed her the different kinds. It was hard to choose. One was called Echo, one Marine Band, and one Deluxe Chromatic. She decided on a Super 40 Chromatic, complete with leather case. "Can you play, honey?" asked the clerk. SHOO-FLY shook her head. "It's not for me," she said. "All the Amish boys like them," said the clerk. SHOO-FLY nodded. How well she knew it. They all loved music, and the harmonica was the only musical instrument allowed by the bishop. The big Amish boys bought very expensive ones, up to $15, to play at their Sunday night sings. She had heard Uncle Chris tell about it. She paid her money and took her package. How glad she was now that she had saved her money. If only she could play it herself, maybe she would try. She'd like to play her favorite songs, "Oh, Susanna," and "Old MacDonald Had a Farm." She walked happily along the street. How surprised Jonas would be. Now he could give the borrowed radio back to Bill Ferguson before he got into trouble about it. He could forget the idea of going to Canada with Bill. He could stay at home and be happy with his new harmonica. And pretty soon, when he got to be 16, Dad would buy him a fine riding horse and build him a shiny new buggy. And he could go visit a girlfriend and start growing a beard. Suddenly, SHOO-FLY looked around and wondered where she was. Everything looked strange. She stopped. She had never been here before. Had she started in the wrong direction? Where was she? The variety store was not in sight. And where was Aunt Susanna's gift shop? Which way had she come? And how could she cross the street where there was no traffic light? Everywhere she looked, she saw words. English words jumped out at her from signs, post, shop fronts, and advertisements. Cafeteria, restaurant, garage, market, insurance, crafts, Colgate, beauty salon, investment, credit, bumper sale, florist, appliances. She could read them all, but they did not help her. They only confused her. Where was the gift shop, and what was its name? Had she ever heard it? She could not remember. A cold wind began to blow. A black cloud loomed overhead. SHOO-FLY hugged her shawl closer. She clutched her purse and packaged tightly. She was hungry now. It was long past mealtime, and she had not eaten since morning. Ma'am had promised them a treat, ice cream cones, but oh, it was too cold. She walked along, not knowing where to go. She knew now she was lost. Where should she go? Which way should she turn? Sick at heart, she kept on going. Noises pounded on her ears, bells clanging, traffic drumming, whistles blowing, a siren wailing, a jukebox throbbing, all bringing confusion. For the first time she had come face to face with the remote and unfamiliar world. Could she ask somebody? Whom could she ask? How could she talk to these strangers who passed her by? Strange people, English people, talking English, nothing but English, men without beards, women with short skirts and pink legs showing to their knees, hair cut off part way and hanging loose as if they had just climbed out of bed, women with spike heels to make them trip and fall, strange creatures from another world, worldly people with worldly ways, greedy people who wanted everything they saw, little girls asking for everything in the store. SHOO-FLY kept on going blindly. Maybe she would see a kind Amish person to ask. She tried to keep the tears back. Then somebody called, and there were the Fergusons again. Are you looking for somebody, Susanna? Asked Miss Ferguson. How did you get to town? I came with my mother, said SHOO-FLY. You drove all the way in your buggy? Asked Miss Ferguson. SHOO-FLY nodded. Where is your mother now? Asked Miss Ferguson. At Aunt Susanna's gift shop, said SHOO-FLY. Could we take you? Miss Ferguson began. Oh no, no, thank you, said SHOO-FLY quickly. She might be lost, but she could not ride in the Fergusons' car again. She had promised Ma'am not to do it. She said goodbye politely and hurried on. She was still lost. She might have asked where the gift shop was, but she didn't. She must look for an Amish woman. She saw Amish buggies go by, but they did not stop. They all seemed to be going in the same direction. She turned several corners and came to a large hitching lot. Beside it was a big building with halls and stairs and passageways. Many people were going in and out, Amish people and others too. She could hear pigs squealing and cows mooing. Then she heard horses neighing. She knew now it was the stock sales barn, the place where farm animals were bought and sold. This was the place where the mystery man was going to buy a riding horse. Was he here today? And would he know her if he saw her again? Maybe Dat was in there with him now, and they'd soon come out, and he would be riding a fine new horse. SHOO-FLY saw Amish men with beards and black felt hats go in and come out, but no women at all, no Amish woman to help her. She hugged her shawl closer. She turned back and tried to remember the way she had come. She must get back to Main Street again. She turned a corner and came to a wider street. Was this the street where all the stores were? She looked across. There was an Amish woman. It looked like Katie Zook's mother. Miss Zook would help her. Oh, she must catch her quick. She darted out. I mustn't let her get away. I can run. Stop. Cry of brakes, a horrible screech. Someone shouts. The cars come to a halt. SHOO-FLY found herself in the middle of the street. Terrified, she turned and ran again. The cars started on, safe on the other sidewalk at last, but Miss Zook was gone. All at once everything was too much for her, the noise, the confusion, the strangeness, the queer people, the crowded stores, and all the cars swooping by. She stopped, and the tears came. She leaned against a tree and cried as if her heart would break. How would she ever get home again? Back at the gift shop, Ma'am and the children waited. Why did not SHOO-FLY come? What was keeping her so long? Aunt Susanna grew nervous and flustered. I should never have let her go alone, but I thought she was old enough. All she had to do was to pass 2 traffic lights and cross over. Where was she going? Asked Ma'am. It is a secret, Aunt Susanna smiled. I don't like to tell, but we've had our sandwiches, and she'll be hungry, said Ma'am. She said she'd come right back in time to eat. Aunt Susanna wrung her hands. Och, now, why didn't I go with her? They sat down and talked again, but SHOO-FLY did not come. Then Ma'am grew restless. Maybe she found someone she knew, began Aunt Susanna. Maybe she found Rufus and went to the cow sale, but she knew she was only guessing. Ma'am could wait no longer. She picked up her bundles, and they hurried down the street. They asked people, strangers, English people, if they had seen a lost Amish girl. They asked at stores and restaurants and houses, but no one had seen her. They met the Fergusons. Yes, they had seen her and talked to her twice, but did not remember which way she went. They looked in the department store, but the clerks had not seen her. By this time, Reuben's face looked white and worried. The twins began to cry. Ma'am hurried faster than ever. They could hardly keep up. Then at last, right on the corner by the store, Ma'am saw Dat and told him the story. He had been at the cow sale, but had not seen SHOO-FLY either. He stroked his beard and grew thoughtful. He told Ma'am to calm herself. We'll find her, he said. A big girl like Susanna would not get lost. His words were quiet and patient. He even smiled. A wise little girl like our Susanna cannot disappear in thin air, he said. The children giggled. Let's go get in the buggy. Och, now, you're not even going to hunt for her, began Ma'am, still sick with worry. We'll have to go to the police station. I want to find SHOO-FLY, wailed Pumpkin. Let's look for Susie, wept Puddin'. Only Reuben Rags said nothing. His lips were fixed in a thin straight line. His eyes showed the sadness he felt. They all knew how much they loved their sister. First, said Dat, let's all have a treat. Who wants an ice cream cone? The children brightened. I do, said the twins. Let's look for SHOO-FLY, said Rags. Ice cream comes first, said Dat. We can't miss our treat. Even Ma'am thought he was being foolish and wasting time, but they went in the drugstore, and she waited patiently while they nibbled and licked their cones. Now we'll go get in the buggy, said Dat. In the buggy, cried Ma'am. Her patience had come to an end. You're going to drive home and leave one of your children behind in this big city. Rufus, I can't understand you. Dat shooed the children before him. In the buggy we'll find her. He never spoke truer words. Skipper whined. He was so glad to see them and eager to get started for home. Rags jumped up first and started to step over the front seat. Then he jumped back, crying out in a loud voice, I found her, here she is. They could hardly believe it. There was SHOO-FLY in the back of the buggy. She had been curled up, fast asleep. She rubbed her eyes, trying to remember. Everybody asked her questions at once, and all the way home she had to tell and retell her story. She told how she had gone to the sales barn, but had not found Dad at all. Somehow, from there, she had found her way back to Main Street, and there, by a traffic light, she had located the big department store. She knew this was the place where Ma'am had bought her new shoes and Reuben's new hat. From there, she had gone to the parking lot behind and found Skipper and the buggy. She had climbed in the buggy. It was a perfect hidey-hole, a place to rest and be safe. She knew the others would come and find her there. She curled up on the blanket in the back and soon fell fast asleep. Wise girl, said Dat. It was the best thing for you to do. I knew you couldn't go home without me, said SHOO-FLY. Then she remembered. I'm hungry, she said. I haven't had a bite to eat since breakfast. We had ice cream cones, said Pumpkin and Puddin'. Ma'am pulled out a big bag of pretzels and opened it. The children nibbled all the way home. Oh, how good it was to be home again, to see the big double house and the big bank barn, the spring house and tall squeaking windmill, still the same but different, the 4 Martin houses empty now, standing like sentinels along the fence, all so familiar, yet now more beloved, seen with new eyes after a long day's absence, the place so neat, so tidy, nothing to mar the simple beauty, the place so plain where so much exciting living went on, the place so plain called home. Home was a shelter from the world and all things worldly.